I was holding the pen that would sign away my grandmother's house when she looked up and whispered, "Danny, do you even know what this contract says?" My name is Daniel Hayes. I'm 55, an IT systems director in Denver, and I like to think I understood things, systems, logic, lines of code, and the clean certainty of facts. That afternoon, I trusted the wrong things: paperwork, a cousin's smile, notion that 60 years of family meant loyalty. Eleanor Hayes, my grandmother, was 85. For months, I'd shrugged off small slips, a missed appointment, a wrong name, a forgotten detail. I told myself age explains 1,000 things. I told myself other people would handle the messy, emotional parts. I told myself she was tired. I had been careless and absent more than I admitted. I underestimated her, and it haunts me. Then she asked that single question, soft as a verdict. She didn't fumble, her eyes were steady. The woman who had once argued complex contracts in court was watching us as if the whole house were a courtroom and we were the defendants. I thought she was confused. Turns out she was testing us, and I failed the test. I was holding the pen that would sign away my grandmother's house. When she looked up and whispered, "Danny, do you even know what this contract says?" My name is Daniel Hayes. I'm 55, an IT systems director in Denver, and I like to think I understood things, systems, logic, code, and the comfort of clear answers. That afternoon, I trusted all the wrong things: paperwork, polite smiles, and the idea that my grandmother's mind was slipping. Eleanor Hayes was 85. She raised me more than my own parents had. And yet somehow I still convinced myself she was too old, too tired, too fragile to follow what was happening around her. Then she asked that question, soft as a verdict. Her eyes were sharp, unblinking. I thought she was confused. Turns out she was testing us. And I failed the test. It started a few weeks earlier. I walked into Grandma's living room with a bag of groceries and the familiar ache in my chest, the one that reminded me I didn't visit enough. The one that whispered, "You're always working, Dan, always too late." She turned from the window, squinting like she was adjusting to sunlight. "Boy, is that you?" she asked. "Not Danny, not Daniel. Boy, my father," her son had been gone 20 years, but that was the name she'd always used for him. Hearing it again knocked something loose inside me. "Grandma, it's me," I said gently. "It's Danny." She blinked twice, nodded, then smiled too brightly. "That's what I meant, Danny, I knew that." I tried laughing it off, but the worry sat heavy in my stomach. As I unpacked the groceries while she hummed and rocked in her chair, every now and then she'd ask, "What day is it again?" or "Did I already take my pills?" Things she never used to forget, and that guilt, that familiar, bitter taste crept in again. If I came more often, if I wasn't always buried in work, if I noticed sooner. I was halfway through sorting her mail when the front door swung open without a knock. Marlene, my cousin, 48, wears sunglasses indoors, talks like she's campaigning for governor. "Oh good, you're here," she said, brushing past me like I was the mailman. "I've been so worried about Aunt Eleanor." Grandma didn't even look up. That was the first clue. Marlene put a hand dramatically on her hip. "Danny, have you noticed how confused she's been lately? This isn't safe. She needs someone to help her manage things." I froze. Manage what things? You know, paperwork, bills, decisions. She said it with a practiced softness, like a doctor preparing to deliver bad news. "I can take over the stress for her." I didn't like the way she said take over. Grandma turned her head slightly, just enough for me to notice it, but not enough for Marlene to catch. Her eyes were open, awake, focused, and for a moment I wondered if she was confused at all or just quiet. "Danny," Marlene went on, "there are documents she should really sign while she's still aware." I felt my stomach twist. "Still aware," I repeated. "Oh, don't be dramatic," she sighed. "I'm saying we need to act responsibly." Before I could answer, Grandma's hand suddenly reached for mine, light, trembling, but intentional. When Marlene stepped into the kitchen to take a call, Grandma tugged my sleeve and whispered, barely audible, "Don't trust everything you hear, Danny." Her voice was steady. Her eyes were clear. And for the first time, I felt a strange, creeping suspicion. Maybe Grandma wasn't the one losing her mind. Maybe I was the one not paying attention. I should have left when Grandma whispered, "Don't trust everything you hear, Danny." I should have trusted her, but guilt makes you stupid. The next Saturday, the whole family gathered at Grandma's house, not for a holiday, not for her birthday, just because Marlene told everyone it was necessary. That alone should have been a warning. By noon, the dining room looked like a poorly organized intervention. My Aunt Linda brought muffins, Uncle George brought his loud opinions, Marlene brought a 3-ring binder the size of a college textbook. Grandma sat at the head of the table, silent, knitting, like she wasn't even listening. Marlene stood at the opposite end, clearing her throat every 10 seconds, loving the attention. "Everyone," she began, "we're here because Aunt Alina needs structure." I felt my jaw clench. Structure, the word people use when they want control. Marlene opened the binder dramatically, like she was about to reveal the 10 Commandments. "This," she said, sliding a document toward me, "is a simple assisted living agreement, just something to lighten her load." I looked down. The header read, "Transitional Care Planning, Voluntary Consent Packet." My chest tightened. "Marlene," I said carefully, "Grandma already has a home, she's fine here." "Danny," she replied slowly, like I had the IQ of a toaster, "this isn't about moving her out. It's about preparing, ensuring she's safe. Ensuring the right people handle her affairs." When she said right people, she tilted her head just enough for her earrings to glint like she was posing for a commercial. Then she delivered the line that shut me up, "You would know this if you visited more." My face went hot. Family murmured. Aunt Linda winced. Humiliation landed like a punch to the stomach, and Marlene saw it. She smelled blood. She snapped the binder shut, slid the document toward me again, and smiled sweetly. "Danny, you're the tech guy. You understand forms, just look it over." I hated how she said tech guy like I repaired microwaves. I took the papers to avoid an argument. The whole room watched me like I was the chosen juror. I skimmed the first page. Bad idea. Was full of pleasant words, optional support, caretaking options, early authorization for assistance, nothing alarming at first glance, but something tugged at me, a sentence structure, a weird phrasing, too many lines left blank. Before I could focus, Grandma's voice cut in soft and shaky. "Oh, is that the paper you brought for me, dear?" Everyone turned. Grandma wasn't knitting anymore. She was watching, not confused, watching. Marlene hurried to her side. "Aunt Alina, don't you worry about this. Danny's just helping us by signing the preliminary consent so we can prepare the final packet." "Hold on, preliminary consent, me? Why me?" I opened my mouth, but Aunt Linda chimed in. "Oh, Danny, just sign it so we can all relax. Your grandmother needs this." There it was again, the guilt. The embarrassment, the room full of eyes silently saying, "Don't make a scene, don't be difficult, just sign." I looked at Grandma. Her face was blank, unreadable. I looked back at the page, the words blurred. I wasn't thinking, I wasn't even breathing fully, and like a coward, like a child trying not to disappoint anyone, I exhaled and scribbled my name on the acknowledgement of review. The room exhaled with me, relieved. "There," Marlene said brightly. "Now we can proceed to the next steps." Next steps, I slid the paper back to her, cheeks burning. That's when Grandma leaned forward slightly, her knitting needles paused midair, her eyes, those calm, sharp eyes, locked on the spot where my signature sat. She wasn't confused, she wasn't lost, she wasn't fragile, she was calculating. And then she did something that rattled me more than anything Marlene had said all day. She smirked. A tiny, knowing, almost amused smirk. Like she was watching a chess piece fall exactly where she planned. I froze. Why was she smiling? What did she know? What had I just signed? But before I could think, Marlene clapped her hands. "Great, now that Danny has acknowledged the information, we'll finalize the transfer documents by next week." Transfer documents. My stomach dropped. I turned to Grandma again. Her smirk was gone. Her face was soft, sweet, innocent, but her eyes, still sharp, still watching me, like she was waiting, like she wanted to see what I'd do next. And then, barely audible above the family chatter, she whispered, "Careful, Danny, you signed too fast." A chill ran down my spine. What does that mean? I whispered back, but she just looked at me with that same unsettling, almost playful glint, like she knew something I didn't, like she was 3 moves ahead. And that was when I realized Grandma wasn't the one being tricked. I told myself I'd go back to Grandma's a few days later just to check in, but the truth was uglier. I needed to see what I had signed. I needed to fix whatever damage I'd done. I needed to feel like less of an idiot. But when I pulled into the driveway, the first thing I saw was Grandma. It was a white contractor van. The doors were open, toolboxes on the lawn, 2 guys carrying measuring tape and clipboards like they were prepping a renovation. My stomach sank. I walked in without knocking. And there she was, Marlene, standing in Grandma's kitchen like she owned the deed, the mortgage, and the next 3 generations of equity. Her manicured finger was tracing the edge of the counter. "This section can come down," she said. "Open the space, make it modern." The contractor nodded. "So full remodel." "Full," she said confidently. "It'll boost resale value." Resale, the word slapped me across the face. I stepped forward. "What's going on?" Marlene spun around, acting surprised. "Danny." "Good you're here. I'm just getting estimates." "For what?" "For when the time comes, of course." Her voice softened, dripping with false pity. "When Aunt Alina can't stay here anymore, someone has to manage things." I clenched my jaw. "I didn't sign anything saying you could renovate her house." "Oh, relax," she waved off. "This is just planning, nothing official." But the contractor looked confused. "You said you were authorized." Marlene shot him a glare so sharp he practically swallowed his words. My heart pounded. Authorized? By who? Because it sure wasn't me. Before I could confront her again, Grandma shuffled into the kitchen, wrapped in her favorite blue cardigan. "Oh my," she said sweetly, "what are you all doing in my house?" The contractors straightened. Marlene swooped to Grandma's side like a shepherd guiding a lamb. "Aunt Alina, remember, we talked about sprucing the place up. You said you wanted to make things easier for when you know." Grandma tilted her head. "What did I say exactly, dear?" Marlene blinked. "Well, you agreed you were overwhelmed with home maintenance." "I said that?" Grandma asked, innocent as a church bell. "Yes," Marlene insisted, but her voice wavered slightly. Grandma looked at the contractors. "Do either of you remember me agreeing to renovations?" The younger guy scratched his neck. "Honestly, ma'am, you didn't say anything. She handled everything." I swallowed a laugh. Grandma nodded slowly. "Oh, well, that doesn't sound like me, but I'm old, maybe I forget." She said it perfectly, soft, vulnerable, confused, but her eyes flicked toward me for half a second and I knew she was acting, she was playing a part, and she was good at it. Marlene rushed to shut the moment down. "Gentlemen, let's just take the measurements for now." Grandma lifted a hand delicately. "No, no, if I agreed to something I should understand it. Why don't you tell me what exactly we're remodeling? A kitchen, a whole house, and what's the cost? Will I owe anything?" The contractors looked at each other uncomfortable. Marlene's smile cracked. "Aunt Alina, you don't need to worry about this level of detail." "Oh," Grandma said softly, "so I'm not involved in decisions about my own house." That single question hit like a grenade. The contractor cleared his throat. "Ma'am, if you don't approve, we can step out." "Yes," Grandma said, her sweetness sharpening just a little. "I think that would be best." The contractors grabbed their gear faster than I've ever seen. They practically sprinted out the door. Marlene closed it behind them, face red, breathing fast. "Aunt Alina," she snapped, "you're making this difficult." Grandma's eyebrows lifted. "Oh, sweetheart, at my age everything is difficult, especially when I don't know what's happening in my own home." Silence. I almost grinned. She was dismantling Marlene with nothing but polite confusion. But the moment she shuffled back toward her living room, Marlene turned on me. "Happy," she hissed. "Do you feel like a hero?" "I feel like something weird is going on and I want the truth," I said. Marlene scoffed. "You already signed the paperwork. Don't suddenly grow a spine now." The shame burned through me again. She started gathering her binder, muttering angrily. That's when her phone buzzed. She stepped into the hallway, thinking I couldn't hear, but her voice carried the curse of old houses and thin walls. "Yes," she whispered sharply. "The contractor's left. She's acting unstable." Pause, no, listen to me, we need her signature now before anyone else interferes. My blood ran cold. I leaned closer to the doorway. Victor's voice came through the phone, muffled but clear enough. I don't care what she's pretending, get that signature today. Pretending, get that signature today. My heart hammered. Something told me this wasn't just about renovations. This was bigger, darker, and whatever contract they needed her to sign. I had already signed the warm-up version blindly. As Marlene's whispering grew harsher, I felt Grandma's eyes on me from the living room. When I looked at her, she was sitting still, calm, almost peaceful, and then very slowly she raised one eyebrow, like she was saying, "Now you see it, Danny, now pay attention." I didn't sleep after hearing Victor say, "We need her signature now." Those words dug into my chest like a hook. By morning I couldn't sit still. Something was wrong, really wrong, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Grandma had been waiting for me to finally notice. So I drove over early before anyone else could show up with documents or contractors or whatever new scheme they were cooking. When I walked in, the house was quiet, too quiet. I called out, "Grandma," no answer. I stepped into the hallway and froze. Victor was standing at Grandma's desk, her private desk, the one she kept locked. He was rummaging through drawers, papers spread everywhere like he was searching for buried treasure. "What the hell are you doing?" I snapped. He didn't even flinch, didn't stop, didn't apologize. He lifted his head and gave me that smug, slow smile people wear when they think they're smarter than everyone around them. "Oh hey, Danny boy," he said casually. "Didn't see you there." "Don't call me that," I said. "Step away from her desk." He laughed, a short, sharp sound filled with mockery. "You're overreacting," he said. "I'm helping your aunt with some paperwork. She misplaced a few things." I stepped closer. "Did she tell you to look through her desk?" His jaw tightened. "Look, you don't take care of her, you barely visit. Somebody has to handle these things." That hit me harder than I wanted it to, because I had been absent. I had let them take control while I sat behind my computer screens pretending work came first, but not anymore. "Victor," I said firmly, "you need to step away from that desk right now." He shrugged, toying with a stack of envelopes. "Relax, I'm just trying to find a few financial documents she said were missing." "You mean documents you want her to sign?" I shot back. His eyes flicked up, cold, annoyed. He didn't deny it. Before I could take another step, Grandma shuffled in from the hallway looking small and sleepy. "Oh, Victor," she said softly, "did you find my checkbook?" My stomach dropped. Victor straightened immediately, pretending concern. "Not yet, Aunt Alina. You said you needed to write a check, right?" "Something urgent?" Grandma nodded sweetly. "Yes, dear, very urgent." She reached into her cardigan pocket and pulled out her checkbook. She had it the entire time. Victor blinked. "Oh well, good, let me help you fill it out." He reached for it and she let him. She placed the entire checkbook in his hand like a trusting grandmother handing candy to a favorite grandchild. My heart started pounding. Victor flipped through the pages quickly, trying to look casual but failing miserably. "That's okay, Aunt Alina," he said. "I can write the amount for you." Grandma tilted her head. "You know how much?" "Oh yes," he said smoothly. "You mentioned it yesterday." She smiled sweetly. "Did I?" He paused only for a second, then kept flipping. That's when she did it. She reached past him, plucked a single blank check out of the book and held it between her fingers. Then she extended her hand toward him. "Here you go, dear. Why don't you write whatever you think is fair?" My breath caught. Victor's eyes lit up, not even trying to hide it. "Of course," he said, trying to stay calm. "I'll just step into the kitchen so I can concentrate." He started walking away with the blank check. I snapped, "Grandma, what are you doing?" I hissed, stepping to her side. She looked up at me with the softest, most innocent expression, the same expression she used to give me as a kid when she caught me sneaking cookies. "Oh, Danny," she whispered, her voice trembling just right. "I don't always remember numbers. I trust Victor." "No, you don't," I whispered harshly. "You're letting him walk away with a blank check." She blinked slowly, still holding onto my arm like a frail old woman who didn't understand what was happening. And then as Victor disappeared around the corner, her entire expression changed. Not drastically, not dramatically, just enough, subtle, sharp, controlled, her lips curved. A small, secret smile, a smile that said she was aware of everything happening. A smile that said she knew exactly what Victor would do with that check. And she wanted me to see it. And then she winked, a clean, quick, confident wink. I felt my entire body jolt. "Grandma," I whispered, but she just placed her hand over mine, patted it gently, and went back to her sweet old lady act. Somewhere in the kitchen, I heard Victor scribbling quickly, breathing fast, hurried like he was stealing time as well as money. Everything clicked at once. Grandma wasn't confused, she wasn't vulnerable, she wasn't weak. She was watching them, testing them, documenting them, and now she was dragging me into whatever game she was playing. I didn't go home after the checkbook incident. I drove around the block 3 times, gripping the steering wheel hard enough to leave nail marks. The wink. The blank check, Victor scribbling in the kitchen like a thief with a timer ticking down. My grandmother wasn't confused at all. She was setting traps, but why? And what scared me most wasn't Victor's greed, it was the calm way she watched him fall for it. I pulled over in front of a park and stared at my phone. There was one person I could call, one name I'd seen on old envelopes in Grandma's desk drawer when I was a teenager. Lucas Moore, attorney at law. I wasn't even sure he was alive anymore, but when I dialed the number, he answered on the third ring. "This is Lucas." Mr. Moore, this is Daniel Hayes, Eleanor's grandson." A long pause, then a low, amused chuckle. Danny, your grandmother told me you'd call." My heart almost stopped. She did. "Of course, when can you come in?" Lucas Moore's office looked like a courtroom trapped in a library, dark wood leather chairs, stacks of books that smelled like old cases and old money. He stood when I walked in, tall and silver-haired, with the kind of posture that made even confident men sit up straighter. "Have a seat," he said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. I sat, suddenly feeling 12 years old again. He studied me over steepled fingers. "So," he began, "tell me what happened." I told him everything, the contractors, the contract, Marlene pushing me to sign, Victor rummaging through the desk, the blank check, the wink. He didn't interrupt once. Didn't look shocked, didn't even raise an eyebrow. When I finished, he leaned back slightly. "Daniel, I've known your grandmother for 50 years. Do you honestly believe she'd let anyone take advantage of her?" My mouth opened, then closed, because the truth was I wasn't sure anymore. He reached into a drawer, pulled out a thin folder, and slid it toward me. "This," he said, "is a cognitive assessment I had her complete last year. She insisted, actually." I flipped it open. It wasn't just good, it was perfect. Memory, reasoning, comprehension. Eleanor Hayes scored like a woman 20 years younger. I looked up. "So she knows what's happening." "Oh, she knows," he said with a small smile. "She always knows." I swallowed hard. "Then why is she acting confused?" "Because she wanted to see who in your family would try to take advantage of her first." The words punched the air from my lungs. "She's testing us, testing them," he corrected gently. "And you in a different way." I frowned. "What way?" He didn't answer, not. Instead, he pulled out another folder, thicker this time. "These," he said, sliding it across the desk, "are documents Eleanor asked me to prepare 8 months ago." I opened it slowly, expecting the usual power of attorney paperwork, but what I found made my jaw drop. There were a revocation of all previous financial permissions, a new estate plan, a trust transfer draft, a guardianship protection petition, a notarized statement declaring she feared future exploitation, all dated from months earlier. She prepared all of this in advance. I whispered. Lucas nodded. "She came to me as soon as she noticed certain family dynamics. She didn't name names, but she suspected Marlene was watching her accounts too closely. Victor was asking odd questions. Little things, little things. Things I had ignored." Lucas leaned forward. "Your grandmother is a retired contract lawyer, Daniel, a good one. She's played big games with big stakes long before you were born. I felt heat rush into my face. I felt stupid, embarrassed, angry mostly at myself. So, I said, voice tight, she set all this up waiting for someone to make a move. She wanted to know who would betray her and who would protect her, Lucas said softly. I stared at the folder. It felt heavy, like responsibility. And I failed, I whispered. I signed something without even reading it. That's why she winked, he said, chuckling. She wanted to see if you'd wake up. I leaned back, exhaling hard. She's going to expose them, isn't she? Oh, eventually, he said, but Alina prefers timing. She wants them to reveal their intentions clearly, legally, publicly. A chill crawled up my spine. Why publicly? Lucas slid the folder back toward me and tapped it. Because when someone's greed is exposed in the open, they can't hide behind excuses. She wants everything on record. Then he leaned in, voice dropping low. And she wants you to learn something, Daniel. What? I asked, his eyes locked onto mine. That you can't save someone you won't stand up for. The words hit harder than anything Marlene ever said to me. Before I could respond, Lucas closed the folder and said, "Go home, watch carefully, and when the moment comes, be on her side." I stood slowly, the room suddenly feeling smaller. As I reached the door, Lucas spoke again, quiet, serious, final. Daniel, she was waiting to see who would try. My hand froze on the doorknob, and now, he added, she knows. I drove back to Grandma's house with Lucas's words bouncing around my skull like loose bolts. She wanted to see who would betray her and who would protect her. I kept replaying every moment from the past month, the confused look she wore at dinner, the half-finished sentences, the blank stares at paperwork. How many of those moments were real? How many were rehearsed? When I walked into the kitchen, she was sitting at the table, peeling apples with the same steady hands she'd had my entire childhood. "Danny," she said without looking up, "you're late. I was expecting you 20 minutes ago." I blinked. Normally, she asked, "Is it Sunday or did we have plans?" But now she sounded like a drill sergeant with a schedule. I dropped my keys on the counter. "Grandma, I need to ask you something." She paused mid-peel. "Ask away." I pulled out the chair across from her. My voice felt tight, nervous. "Do you know what's been going on around here?" She blinked at me once, slow, almost theatrical. "Oh dear," she said gently, placing her hand on mine. "I'm just an old woman. Things slip past me these days." The words were soft. But her eyes sparkled like someone who had already seen the entire movie and was waiting to watch me react to the twist. "Grandma," I pushed, "Victor was in your desk yesterday. Marlene is bringing contractors into your kitchen. They made me sign something I barely read, something to do with assisted living." He said lightly, "Is that so?" I stared at her. This was the same woman who once grilled a roofer for an hour because his quote had a comma out of place. This was the same woman who used to say, "No contract is harmless, Danny. Contracts are traps with polite fonts." I swallowed hard. "Are you pretending?" I asked. She resumed peeling. "Whatever makes you feel better, dear." Her tone said nothing. Her eyes said everything. I leaned closer. "Grandma," Lucas Moore said, "you're still competent." Completely. She didn't react, not with her face, but the peeler slipped just enough to prove she heard me. Then she lowered the apple and placed the peeler on the table with surgeon-level precision. "Daniel," she said softly, "Lucas talks too much. He said you knew someone would try something." Her eyes flickered, then softened with an old, tired sadness. "People get greedy," she murmured, "especially family. Happens more often than you think." Her voice had changed just for a second, warmer, sharper, like the lawyer she used to be. I leaned in even more. "Then why are you acting confused?" She gave me the smallest smile, to see who thinks confusion is an invitation. I felt goosebumps crawl up my arms. The kitchen suddenly felt colder. She picked up another apple, but before she started peeling, she added, "Also, it's easier to learn what people truly want when they think you aren't paying attention." That sentence, it didn't belong to a confused elderly woman. It belonged to someone calculating evidence. "Grandma," I whispered, "are you building a case?" She laughed, a short, breathy laugh that didn't answer anything and answered everything. "Oh heavens, no," she said in a wavering voice. I wouldn't know where to start. I can barely remember the difference between a revocable trust and a durable power of attorney. I stiffened. Those weren't words forgotten old ladies used by accident. She continued paling like she hadn't just dropped a legal grenade into the room. You know how it is, she said sweetly. All those, what do you call them, fiduciary obligations. I stared with my jaw halfway open. Another accident. She wasn't confused, she was performing, she was acting circles around all of us. Grandma, I tried again, why won't you just tell me what's going on? She stopped. Set the apple down, turned her full attention on me, and in a tone so calm it was almost a whisper, she said, "Because, dear, you're still deciding which side you're on." My breath caught. What does that mean? I asked, but she didn't answer. Her face slipped back into softness, confusion returning like a coat. She shrugged on. I wonder if I took my blood pressure pill today, she murmured suddenly, looking around the kitchen like she'd lost something. I knew this part was an act, but it still hurt to see her slip into it so easily. I'll go check your pill box, I said quietly. She nodded without looking at me. I walked down the hallway toward her bedroom, feeling like the floor was tilting. I didn't know what to believe, or who Grandma thought I was becoming, or what she expected me to do. When I stepped into her room, something felt staged, organized, deliberate. Her dresser drawers were closed but slightly misaligned, like someone had opened them recently. Her jewelry box sat on the bed empty, her closet door was cracked open, and on the top shelf, almost tucked out of sight, was a small metal lockbox. A label was taped across it, a label written in her sharp, unmistakable handwriting. Evidence of my blood ran cold. I reached for it. It was heavy, the lock was new, untouched, and the label felt like a warning or an invitation or both. I whispered to myself, "What the hell are you doing, Grandma?" Marlene called it a care planning meeting. That should have been my first clue something was off, because Marlene didn't plan anything unless she had something to gain. The meeting was at Grandma's house, of course, because nothing screams manipulation like staging a takeover in the victim's own living room. When I arrived, the place looked wrong, too clean, too staged. The good china was on the coffee table. The curtains were perfectly tied back. Marlene even lit candles like this was a real estate showing. Victor was already there, leaning against the wall like hired muscle. He gave me a glare that said, "You're late and also useless." Grandma was in her recliner, hands folded, eyes soft and unfocused, too unfocused. It was the act again, the one I now recognized too well. "Danny," Marlene said, forcing a smile so wide it practically trembled. "We're just getting started." "Started with what exactly?" I asked. She gestured to the dining table where a polished binder sat like some sacred script. "This," she said proudly, "is the new comprehensive home and asset management contract." My stomach flipped. Victor chimed in, "It's for Grandma's protection and for the family's future. You know, responsibility, Danny, something you should try." I ignored him and turned to Grandma. "Did you agree to this meeting?" I asked. She blinked slowly. "Oh dear, I forget things these days." Marlene patted her shoulder. "Exactly, which is why this contract is so important." Then she opened the binder like she was unveiling a magic trick. The first page had a huge title, Designated Property Steward, Marlenewatt. I felt heat rise in my neck. "So this gives you control of her home." I said, "Temporarily," she corrected sweetly. "Just until she needs assisted living, someone capable has to handle the paperwork." Victor snorted, "And clearly that's not you." I ignored him again. "What about Grandma's attorney?" I asked pointedly. Marlene's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. "Oh, Lucas is retiring soon," she lied confidently. "He said we should handle things informally as a family." That was bold and stupid. Lucas would rather eat his own briefcase. I kept my face neutral, letting her dig deeper. She flipped to another page. "This clause ensures I manage all property maintenance and financial decisions. Grandma won't have to worry about a thing." Victor added, "And you'll sign as co-responsible family member to show unity. Unity, funny word coming from the guy who threatened to educate me in Grandma's driveway last year. I looked at the signature line. My name was already printed under it. Why am I signing anything? I asked. Victor stepped closer until I could feel his breath on my cheek. Because you owe this family, Danny. You vanish for years, then show up acting like you get to make decisions. You're not the hero here. I stepped back, jaw tight. Marlene raised her hands in a mock calming gesture. Let's not fight. This is for Grandma's benefit. We all want what's best for her. Every word was a lie, every sentence a trap. And Grandma just sat there silent, staring at her folded hands. Grandma, I said gently, do you want Marlene to take control of your house? She looked up, confused or pretending to be. Oh, I don't know, dear. I get so mixed up with all these legal decisions. Marlene jumped on the moment. Exactly, that's why we're here. Daniel, please stop making this harder than it needs to be. She shoved a pen into my hand. Just sign the unity acknowledgement, she said. It's just formalities. I looked at the page again, at the long blocks of text, at the transfer of authority clause whispered under layers of friendly-sounding words. Then I looked at Grandma. Her face was blank, but her fingers were tapping, slow, steady, almost rhythmic. 3 taps, pause, 3 taps. Lucas had told me something during our meeting. Your grandmother still uses courtroom habits. When she taps 3 times, it means she's waiting for someone to make a mistake. I tightened my grip on the pen. Before I could speak, Marlene launched into a full presentation, graphs, timelines, care facility brochures, a slideshow on her tablet that she clearly prepared weeks ago. She had been planning this long before any of us realized. Daniel, she said in her most patronizing tone, your grandmother needs structure and oversight. This is for her safety. Victor chimed in, just sign it so we can move forward. Their voices blended into a buzzing mess of pressure, guilt, and entitlement. And then, in the middle of Marlene's rehearsed monologue, Grandma lifted one hand, just barely. But enough to silence the room. Her voice was soft. Sweetheart, she said to Marlene, may I ask one question? Marlene froze, her smile tightened. Of course, Grandma, she said. Anything. Grandma tilted her head, eyes still innocent. In this contract, she said slowly, why does it say irrevocable property assignment on page 3, paragraph 2? Marlene's face dropped. Victor cursed under his breath. I felt something electric shoot through me. The word was too specific, too accurate. Too impossible for someone confused to recall. And Grandma sat there, blinking like she had simply read a baking recipe wrong. Marlene snapped the binder shut. That's just legal phrasing, she stammered. You don't need to worry about that. But the damage was done. Her whole pitch unraveled right there. Grandma knew, she had known all along, and Marlene knew she knew. Victor stepped forward, face red and shaking. Enough games, he growled. Just sign it already. His voice cracked through the room like a gunshot, and I realized this wasn't a meeting, this was an ambush. Victor snarling, just sign it already. As the whole plan teeters on collapse, Victor's voice was still echoing, just sign it already, when everything in the room seemed to freeze. Marlene's fake smile had collapsed into a tight, panicked line. The binder lay half open on the table like a crime scene. And then Grandma, my quiet, trembling, confused grandmother, lifted her hand and slammed the contract shut with a sharp crack that made all of us jump. The room went dead silent. She looked up at Victor first, then Marlene, then me. And for the first time in months, her eyes were not dim, unfocused, sugary, or confused. They were clear, sharp, courtroom sharp. Sit down, she said, not a tremor, not a waver, a command. Victor actually sat. Marlene froze in place. I felt my whole body tense. Lucas warned me, when a leaner stops pretending, things move fast. Grandma placed both hands on the closed binder. I have listened to enough, she said calmly. Now I will speak. Marlene swallowed so loudly I heard it. Gee, Grandma, we were just trying to stop lying, Grandma said without raising her voice. You are terrible at it. My jaw hit the floor. She turned the binder toward herself and opened it with deliberate care, flipping straight to page 3. The irrevocable property assignment clause, she said, tapping the section with a fingernail, does not belong in a care plan, it belongs in a transfer of ownership agreement, meaning you are attempting to gain control of my house before any doctor has declared me unfit. Marlene's mouth fell open. That's just boilerplate. No, Grandma cut in. This wording is illegal unless I have an independent advocate present, which of course you made sure I did not. Victor rubbed his forehead. You're misunderstanding. I was a contract attorney for 42 years, she snapped. I do not misunderstand paragraph structure. I sat perfectly still, my heart pounding. This was no longer the woman asking whether she'd taken her blood pressure pill. This was Eleanor Hayes, the woman who once negotiated 3 corporations into bankruptcy court. She flipped another page. And here, she said, you inserted a durable authority clause that overrides any existing power of attorney, which, interestingly, you would know nothing about unless you illegally obtained copies of my documents. Marlene's face drained of color. That's not those were. Drafts, Grandma repeated, chuckling darkly. The only drafting you have ever done is on your social media posts. I nearly choked trying not to laugh, then she looked at Victor. And you, she said, tone colder, trying to pressure Daniel into signing something he never read, that is coercion, also illegal. Victor's jaw tightened. I wasn't coercing him. Grandma flipped to another page. This signature, she said, tapping it, is mine, except it was, the handwriting was close, very close, but not identical. Grandma glanced up at me. Daniel, does that look like my signature? My throat felt tight. It looks similar, but not exact. That is because it is forged, she said plainly, sloppily forged. A cold sweat broke down my back. Marlene stuttered, We scanned a copy and maybe the printer. Grandma raised one finger. She didn't even need to speak. The room obeyed. She flipped another page. And this, she said, her voice flattening, is an altered page. The footer numbering does not match. The ink color in the margin edits is different. Someone inserted this sheet after printing. Victor started pacing like a caged dog. Marlene looked seconds away from fainting. I stared at Grandma, realizing she had seen all of this, every clause, every forgery, every illegal part of the scheme. She'd known long before this meeting. She closed the binder again. Then she folded her hands and looked at all of us, calm, steady, terrifying. I was willing to give you each a chance, she said softly. A chance to be honest. To care for me because you love me, not because you want something from me. Marlene shook her head rapidly, eyes shining with fake tears. I do love you, Grandma. Love, Grandma said, cutting her off, does not require contracts. Victor's voice cracked. We were trying to help, you were trying to take, she corrected. You thought I was confused, you thought I wouldn't notice, you thought Daniel would be easy to manipulate. I felt the heat of shame rise in my cheeks. I'm sorry, I whispered. She softened only when looking at me. You woke up, she said gently. That is why I waited. Then she turned back to the cousins. But you too, she inhaled, slow and controlled. You went too far, and now this is no longer a family problem. My heart skipped. Her voice dropped. This is a legal problem. The air tightened around us. Marlene began to cry, real tears this time. Victor muttered under his breath, and then Grandma looked at me directly. No roles, no act, pure authority. Daniel, she said, fetch my lawyer. My breath caught. Lucas, she meant Lucas, but I started. Now, she said, and there it was, the moment everything crossed a line, the moment the test became a case, the moment the family drama became a legal war. I stood up slowly, heart pounding, because Grandma had finally dropped the act, and that meant all hell was about to break loose. Lucas Moore arrived faster than I expected, 20 minutes, maybe less. He walked in without hesitation, carrying a thick leather folder tucked under one arm. Not a briefcase, a folder, the kind lawyers use when they already know they're going to win. Marlene shrank back when she saw him. Victor cursed under his breath. Grandma greeted him with a tiny nod, not affectionate, professional. Lucas, she said calmly, please begin. He set the folder on the dining table, right beside the fraudulent contract Marlene had been pushing an hour earlier. He didn't even look at her. He simply opened the folder and spread out 3 crisp stacks of paper like a dealer laying down cards. "This," he said, tapping the first stack, "is Eleanor Hayes' standing estate plan, drafted last year, signed, notarized, and witnessed." He looked at me. "This is the plan she actually approved." I felt my pulse quicken. Victor scoffed. "So what? The plans can change." Lucas turned his eyes toward him, calm, cold, and lethal. "Yes, they can," he said, "but only by the owner of the estate, not by opportunistic family members digging through desks and altering documents." Victor's face twitched. Lucas tapped the second stack. "This is a revocation of all unauthorized contracts presented to Eleanor over the past 6 months, pre-filed, signed by Eleanor before any of you attempted your little care meeting." Marlene blinked. She revoked something she never signed. Lucas smiled. "She revoked anything you might try to get her to sign." My breath left my lungs. Grandma had protected herself before the threat even appeared. Lucas tapped the final stack, this one thicker. "And this," he said, sliding it into the center of the table, "is the most important document here." Marlene whispered, "What is that?" Lucas clasped his hands. "This is the test contract." Victor frowned. "Test? What test?" Lucas looked at Grandma. "May I?" She nodded once. He turned back to us. "Eleanor approached me 8 months ago," he explained. "She suspected shifts in the family dynamic, questions about her home, comments about her memory, subtle pressures. I felt sick. I dismissed those signs as normal aging." Lucas continued. "So she asked me to help her draft a document, a fake one, something that looked like a vulnerability, something tempting." He pointed to the fraudulent binder Marlene had brought in. "That contract, the one you thought you manipulated. The one you edited, the one you forged signatures on." He lifted it gently between 2 fingers. "It's not the real document. It's a decoy based on the test contract Eleanor designed." I blinked hard. "She designed a trap." Lucas nodded. "A legal trap, a bait document. One that would expose anyone attempting to exploit her." Marlene staggered back into a chair. Victor's face went red. "That's insane. She's setting us up." "No," Lucas corrected. "She gave you an opportunity to behave ethically. You failed." Grandma lifted her chin, eyes sharper than any courtroom spotlight. "I simply waited," she said quietly, "to see who would reach first." Lucas opened the test contract. Each page was marked lightly in pencil, small annotations, circled clauses, notes like "watch for pressure" and "observe reactions." I swallowed. 8 months ago, she knew something was coming, and she prepared legal evidence before anyone made a move. My voice barely came out. "She's been documenting everything." Lucas nodded. "Every conversation, every visit. Every attempt to guide her into signing something. She even recorded her own observations about your behavior." Victor slammed his fist onto the table. "This is ridiculous. She's turning the whole family against each other. For what?" Grandma looked him dead in the eyes. "For the truth." Marlene wiped her eyes aggressively. "We were trying to help you. You misremember things. You get confused." "Do I?" Grandma asked softly. Then she recited word perfect, a line from the fraudulent contract. Section 4B, "The designated steward shall have unilateral authority to manage real estate assets without the grantor's review." Marlene's mouth hung open. Victor muttered, "That's impossible." Lucas shrugged. "Not really. Eleanor's memory is excellent. As documented by the neurological evaluation she requested voluntarily last year." He pulled out a sheet signed by a doctor. I felt like I was watching a courtroom drama, except this was my family unraveling in real time. Marlene whispered, Why would you do this to us?" Grandma answered with quiet sadness, "I did not do this to you. I simply allowed you to reveal yourselves." Victor paced like a cornered animal. "None of this will hold up. You can't prove intent. We didn't sign anything." Lucas raised an eyebrow. Actually, you did. Marlene froze. What? No, I didn't. I never. Lucas pulled another sheet from his folder and placed it in front of her. A signature, her signature, a date, a time, a notarized witness. Marlene's voice cracked. What is that? The test document, Lucas said. The one you signed last month when Alina asked you to help her understand a clause. She handed you a pen you signed without reading. My stomach dropped. The humiliation I'd felt earlier that week, it hadn't been an accident. She had tested all of us, and Marlene had walked right into it. Victor whispered sharply, you tricked us. Grandma replied, no, I observed you. Lucas closed the folder, exhaled slowly, and looked at me. Daniel, he said, your grandmother has built a remarkably airtight case. She's a formidable strategist. I nodded, throat tight. Then Lucas looked back at Marlene and Victor. And now, he said, gathering the documents with calm finality, we file. Victor stepped back, eyes wide. Marlene gasped. Grandma didn't flinch. Realized this wasn't the end of the war. It was the opening shot. I should have known Marlene wouldn't go quietly. Lucas warned us the moment he filed the paperwork. People who get caught don't stop, they escalate. He was right. 2 days after the family meeting, I got a call from the bank, Grandma's bank. The manager, Mr. Douglas, a guy I'd known since high school, said, Daniel, you might want to come down here. There's an issue with your grandmother's account. My heart sank. Is she okay? I asked. It's not about her, he said. It's about your cousins. Of course it was. I drove to Oak Ridge Credit Union with a pit in my stomach. The parking lot looked normal, people going in and out with deposit slips and toddler tantrums. But inside, the tension hit me immediately. People were gathered near the teller stations, whispering and watching something unfold near the manager's glass office. And there they were, Marlene and Victor, standing at the counter with a thick binder, the fraudulent contract binder open between them like a trophy. Marlene's voice carried through the whole lobby. I am the designated property steward. It is legally documented. You have to give me access to Alina Hayes' accounts. Victor added, if you delay this, you could be held responsible. The teller, a girl barely in her 20s, looked like she wanted to crawl under the desk. Mr. Douglas stepped out of his office and spotted me instantly. Relief washed over his face. Daniel, he said, good, come here. Marlene spun around so fast her hair whipped like she was in a shampoo commercial powered by rage. You, she hissed. Victor glared. Nice of you to show up. I kept my voice steady. What are you doing here? Marlene shoved the binder toward me. We're accessing Grandma's money for her care. The contract gives us the authority. People in the lobby turned to look at me, curious, judgmental, hungry for drama. A bank is a boring place until it is. Mr. Douglas cleared his throat. Daniel, your cousins presented this binder claiming it gives them immediate access to all of Alina's accounts, including savings, trust holdings, and home equity credit. His expression hardened. I told them it didn't look official. Marlene crossed her arms. You're not a lawyer. You don't get to decide what's official. No, he said calmly, but I do get to deny access when something appears fraudulent. Victor slammed his palm on the counter, making everyone jump. It's not fraudulent. Mr. Douglas didn't flinch. I called Alina directly, he said, looking at me. She told me she's safe with you and her attorney. She said explicitly, do not honor any document from Marlene or Victor. Marlene turned red, shiny, furious red. That old woman doesn't know what she's doing. She snapped. The crowd murmured. Someone whispered, did she just say that about her own grandmother? Victor leaned in close to Mr. Douglas, pointing a finger at his chest. You better watch what you say. We can sue this place for withholding access. Mr. Douglas lifted the binder. And then he did something I didn't expect. He opened a drawer, pulled out a plastic evidence sleeve, and slid the contract inside. Sir, ma'am, he said, you have presented a document containing suspicious edits, mismatched page formatting, and what appear to be forged signatures. A wave rippled through the lobby. Victor barked, it's not forged. Mr. Douglas raised his hand. Because of these inconsistencies, I am legally required to treat this document as potential financial fraud. Marlene gasped like he'd slapped her. That is a lie. You don't have the authority to say that. I absolutely do, he said calmly. The bank is obligated to protect elderly clients. This falls under the Elder Financial Safety Act. I felt something quiet and dangerous spark inside me, satisfaction. For once, someone else was calling them out. Victor stepped forward, fists clenched. Give us the binder now. No, Mr. Douglas said. Security is on the way. Almost on cue, two uniformed guards rounded the corner. Customers shifted aside, whispering. One guard approached. Which individuals, sir? Mr. Douglas pointed. Marlene Wyatt and Victor Wyatt. Marlene whirled toward me. You did this. You poisoned everyone against us. I shook my head. No, you did that yourself. The guard gently motioned for them to step away from the counter. Ma'am, sir, you'll need to come with us. Victor puffed up like a balloon ready to burst. We are family, we have rights. Not when you use forged documents, Mr. Douglas replied calmly. People stared, phones came out, someone recorded. Someone else whispered, this is crazy. I felt humiliation creeping in, not for myself, but for the spectacle, for how far the family had fallen, for how public it all was. But beneath the humiliation, something else burned, vindication. The guard placed a hand on Marlene's elbow. Ma'am, let's step outside. She jerked away. Don't touch me, this is all his fault. Another guard stepped between her and the teller counter. Ma'am, outside now. Victor finally realized they weren't backing down. He grabbed the binder from the evidence sleeve only for the guard to intercept and hold it firmly. That stays, the guard said. Marlene shrieked, you'll regret this. They were escorted through the lobby, people parting like the sea, whispering. Victor stared at the floor. Marlene stared at me, eyes wild, full of hate, betrayal, desperation. Just before the doors closed behind her, she screamed across the parking lot, You'll regret this, Daniel. Every head in the lobby snapped toward me. Heat flooded my cheeks, shame, relief, fear, and then resolve. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of them anymore. Courtrooms smell like old books and fear. I learned that the morning of Grandma's hearing. Rows of benches filled slowly with community members, neighbors, church friends, even a few strangers who just liked public drama. Word travels fast in small towns, and an elder exploitation case. That's front row entertainment. Marlene and Victor walked in behind their lawyer, looking like wilted royalty. He wore a cheap suit. She wore sunglasses indoors again, mascara thick enough to dam a river. I sat beside Grandma and Lucas. Grandma was calm, too calm. She held her purse on her lap and folded her hands like she was waiting for a choir service to start, not a legal showdown that could put half her family under investigation. The judge entered, a tall woman with steel in her posture. Case of Hayes v. Wyatt, she said. Parties, please be seated. And just like that, the hearing began. Lucas opened with a quiet, devastating statement, no theatrics, no raised voice. Your Honor, this case is about intent, not confusion, not care, intent. Elder exploitation is defined by attempts, not outcomes. He laid the fraudulent contract on the podium as if he were placing a weapon into evidence. Then he tapped it once. This document, he said, tells its own story. Marlene's lawyer stood. Objection. The defense maintains that the contract was a draft. Lucas smiled. A draft that includes forged signatures, altered clauses, and illegal transfers of authority. The judge raised an eyebrow. The court will examine it. Proceed. Lucas stepped aside. First witness, Victor Wyatt. Victor swaggered up like he was ready to charm the room. He swore in, took the stand, leaned back, and crossed his arms. Lucas didn't waste time. Mr. Wyatt, did you or did you not attempt to access Eleanor Hayes' bank accounts 2 days ago using this contract? Victor smirked. We were checking if funds were available for her care. Lucas nodded. And when denied, you argued with the manager, correct? Because he wasn't listening and security escorted you out, correct? Victor clenched his jaw. That was an overreaction. There were whispers in the room. Lucas paced slowly, hands behind his back. Tell the court why you believed you had access to her accounts. Because I had authority. Lucas stopped. Under what document? The contract. Lucas lifted the binder. This one? Yes, and who drafted this version? Victor hesitated. Well, we all contributed. Lucas leaned in. Did Alina contribute? Victor looked at Marlene, then at the judge, then at his lap. No, the judge scribbled something. Lucas continued, voice razor sharp. Did you add or edit any clauses without Alina's knowledge? No, are you sure? Yes. Lucas placed 2 pages on the evidence screen, one from the original draft and one from the altered binder. Your Honor, these edits appear in different ink colors and show metadata timestamps from Mr. Wyatt's home printer. Victor's eyes widened. That's not someone else, but the room had already decided. His arrogance folded. He sank lower in the seat, his confidence draining like a punctured tire. Next, Lucas called Alina Hayes. The entire courtroom turned. Grandma stood slowly, gripping her purse. I rose to help her, but she waved me off. I can walk, she whispered, and she did. She swore in, took the stand, and adjusted the microphone like she'd been doing it her whole life. Lucas began gently. Mrs. Hayes, would you describe your mental clarity over the past? She smiled. I read 82 books last year. My mind is fine. Laughter rippled through the room, and your ability to understand legal documents. Her eyes warmed with old pride. I wrote legal documents for a living, Mr. Moore. Lucas nodded and stepped back. Mrs. Hayes, did you authorize the contract brought to you by Marlene and Victor Wyatt? No. Did you understand its contents? I understood every clause. Marlene flinched. Mrs. Hayes, did you ever tell your family you were confused about financial matters? Grandma folded her hands. I allowed them to assume I was confused. Her voice softened. People reveal themselves when they believe you are weak. The courtroom went silent. Lucas approached the evidence table. Mrs. Hayes, can you explain to the court what irregularities you saw in this contract? Grandma leaned forward. Paragraph structures inconsistent with standard fiduciary guidelines. Unilateral authority clauses hidden inside care language. My signature forged poorly, might I add, and page numbers mismatched with the original sequence. The judge stared at her impressed. Lucas smiled. No further questions. Marlene's lawyer approached Grandma cautiously. Mrs. Hayes. Is it possible you misinterpreted your niece's intentions? Grandma tilted her head kindly. It is possible they meant well. Marlene straightened in hope, but Grandma continued, people who mean well do not forge signatures. Marlene's face crumpled. Her lawyer tried again. Couldn't the edits be accident? Grandma raised an eyebrow. You cannot accidentally create a clause that gives yourself ownership of someone else's home. The lawyer deflated. The judge looked over her glasses. Mrs. Hayes, how long have you been aware of these attempts to manipulate your estate? Grandma breathed in slowly. Months. And why didn't you confront it earlier? Grandma looked directly at Marlene and Victor to see how far they'd go. The room murmured loudly. The judge tapped the gavel lightly for order. Grandma sat back, composed, elegant, unbroken. I felt something swell inside my chest, pride, relief. Awe, she had dismantled them piece by piece and hadn't even broken a sweat. Then came the breakdown. Marlene shot to her feet, voice cracking with panic. That's not fair, she shrieked. She tricked us, she tricked us. The courtroom gasped. The judge's eyes narrowed. Lucas turned to me with a calm, devastating smirk. It appears, he whispered, they've just confessed. Court was supposed to end after Grandma's testimony. The judge was already closing her binder when Lucas cleared his throat. Your Honor, he said, Mrs. Hayes has one final statement regarding her estate. Marlene's head snapped up like someone yanked an invisible string. Victor grabbed the bench in front of him. The judge motioned, proceed. Lucas helped Grandma rise. She stood slowly, not out of weakness, but out of intention. She waited until the room was fully quiet before she spoke. For months, she began, I have listened, I have watched. I have allowed certain actions to unfold so that the truth could surface. Her voice didn't tremble, it resonated. I prepared for this moment long before any contract appeared before me. The judge nodded, expression unreadable. Grandma continued, I have revised my estate plan. The final version is complete, notarized, and filed with the court. A ripple went through the courtroom. Victor muttered, Oh God. Marlene gripped her lawyer's sleeve like she was drowning. Grandma glanced at Lucas. Mr. Moore, please present it. He placed a sealed envelope on the podium, broke it open, and displayed a simple, elegant document. No loopholes, no hidden clauses, just clean lines and clarity. This, he said, is Eleanor Hayes' final estate distribution. My throat tightened. Grandma turned to the judge. I would like it read aloud. The judge nodded for Lucas to continue. He began, Section 1, the property located at 214 Brookview Lane, including all structures, land rights, and assets contained therein, shall be transferred in full to. I stopped breathing. My name left his lips like a verdict. Daniel Hayes, my grandson. Gasps shot through the room. Someone whispered, but he almost signed the bad contract. Another hissed, they expected the house. Victor swore under his breath. Marlene swayed like she might faint. I stared at Grandma, stunned. Grandma, why me? I whispered. She didn't smile. Not yet. Lucas continued reading. Section 2. All remaining personal assets, financial accounts, and heirlooms shall be distributed according to an attached list prepared by the grantor. He flipped to the next page. Section 3 to Marlene Wyatt, niece of the grantor. Marlene sat up straighter, chest lifting, hope flooding her face. Lucas finished the line, I leave the sum of $1. The room exploded, gasps, whispers, a muffled wow from somewhere in the back row. $1, Marlene screeched. One, that's insane. That's disrespectful, It is symbolic, Grandma said calmly, to show the court that I did not forget you but that I do not trust you. Marlene's face twisted, blotchy with rage. You can't do this, I took care of you. Grandma raised a single eyebrow. By taking my checkbook, by forging my signature, by trying to sell my home before I even moved out. Marlene froze. Victor slumped back in his seat, defeated. Lucas continued reading. Section 4. Victor Wyatt shall receive no inheritance or claim to any property, assets, or trusts belonging to Mrs. Hayes. Victor snarled, figures. Section 5, Lucas read, all future attempts to challenge this estate shall result in immediate forfeiture of any remaining rights, privileges, or claims under the Hayes Family Trust. The judge nodded approvingly. This is airtight, she said. Grandma slowly sat back down. The room buzzed with every emotion possible, shock, admiration, anger, disbelief. I leaned toward Grandma, voice trembling. You didn't have to leave me the house. I don't deserve, she cut me off gently. I did not leave it to you for loyalty, she said, or guilt, or repayment. I left it to you because you were honest when the truth mattered. I signed something without reading, I whispered. Yes, she said softly, and then you corrected your course. You woke up, you defended me, you listened. She paused, and you are the only one who tried to understand what was actually happening. My eyes burned, not from pride, from the weight of it. She leaned closer, her hand brushing mine. But she said quietly, do not mistake this moment for the end. I exhaled shakily. What do you mean? Her eyes sharp, alive, fixed on mine with unsettling intensity. Daniel, she whispered, you're still not ready for the final truth. A chill crawled down my spine. What truth? But she didn't answer. She simply rested her hand back on her purse and stared straight ahead as if she were waiting for the next battle to begin. The court victory didn't feel like victory, not yet, because Grandma's last words kept replaying in my mind like a riddle I wasn't smart enough to solve. You're still not ready for the final truth. I drove her home after the hearing. She insisted on sitting in the front seat, hands folded neatly over her purse, staring straight ahead as if she were memorizing every tree we passed. When we pulled into the driveway, she didn't move. Help me inside, she said softly. I offered my arm, expecting the usual slow shuffle. But once the door closed behind us, she let go of me, stood straighter, and walked toward the hallway with deliberate purpose. Come with me, Danny. Her voice wasn't tired, wasn't gentle, it was resolved. I followed her into her bedroom. She stopped in front of the closet and pointed, "Top shelf, bring it down." I reached up and grabbed the small metal lockbox I'd seen before, the one labeled Evidence A. It felt heavier this time. Grandma sat on the edge of the bed and motioned for me to place it beside her. "Open it." My hands trembled as I turned the key she handed me. The lid clicked. Inside were neat stacks of envelopes, notebooks, photocopies, receipts, and one leather-bound journal. My heart thudded. "Grandma, what is all this?" She answered without hesitation. "It is the truth about you." I froze. "About me?" She reached into the box and pulled out an envelope yellowed with age. My name was written across it in the messy handwriting of a little boy, Daniel Hayes, age 9. I felt my throat tighten. "You kept this," I whispered. "I kept everything." She opened the envelope and handed me the paper inside. It was a letter, mine, a crooked, misspelled note I'd written to her the summer my parents forgot to pick me up from baseball camp. "Grandma, I'm scared. Mom said she'd come, Dad said he would too, but no one came. Can I stay with you? I'll be good, I promise." I remembered writing it. I remembered waiting on the steps with my backpack and a knot in my throat, but I never knew she saved it. Grandma reached into the box again, pulling out another envelope, then another. Letters, drawings, thank you notes from birthdays she made special because no one else showed up, essays from school, photos of me at her kitchen table doing homework while she pretended not to watch. "You documented my entire childhood." I whispered. She didn't smile. She wasn't sentimental. She was serious. "I documented your character." My head snapped up. "Character." She nodded, slow, steady, purposeful. "I needed to know who you were, not who you pretended to be, not who you thought you needed to be for your father or mother or your cousins." She handed me another paper, one I'd never seen. A small index card with her handwriting. "Daniel tells the truth even when it hurts him. Daniel feels deeply but hides it. Daniel protects quiet things. Daniel listens even when he thinks he doesn't." My chest tightened like a fist was squeezing around my ribs. "Grandma, why would you write these things down?" She looked at me, then really looked, and her eyes softened in a way I hadn't seen in years. "Because I knew you would doubt yourself one day, and I wanted evidence you were worth believing in." My breath caught. This wasn't about the house. This wasn't about the court case. This wasn't about Marlene or Victor or contracts or traps. This was about her knowing me better than I ever knew myself. She reached into the box one more time and pulled out the leather-bound journal. "This," she said, placing it gently in my hands, "is every observation I made while deciding who should inherit this home." I swallowed hard. "You mean you didn't choose me because I fought for you?" "Oh no," she whispered. "I chose you long before you ever fought." I stared at her, stunned. The journal felt warm in my hands. "You left me the house because," she interrupted softly, "because you have a good heart, not because you signed anything." Something inside me cracked open. Years of guilt, insecurity, resentment, they all rose up at once, burning behind my eyes. "I don't deserve this," I whispered. She reached for my hand. "Maybe not yet," she said, "but you will." We sat in silence for a moment, surrounded by decades of proof that she had watched me grow, fail, try, apologize, love, hide, and return, proof that I mattered to her in ways I never understood. Then she reached into the lockbox one last time. She pulled out a small white envelope, unmarked, sealed, thick. She held it out to me. "For later," she said quietly. I stared at it. "What's inside?" She closed my fingers around it. "You'll know when it's time." A shiver ran up my spine. This wasn't over, not even close. Grandma lasted longer than any doctor predicted, longer than stress should have allowed, longer than the betrayal that nearly broke her. 3 months after the court ruling, she started fading, not suddenly, not painfully, but the way a candle slowly sinks into itself when the wick has given everything it had. I visited every morning before work, every night before bed. Some evenings she was alert enough to tease me, call me boy, and pretend not to know what day it was. Other nights she just held my hand silently, her thumb brushing the back of my knuckles like she was memorizing the shape of me. The sealed envelope she'd given me sat on my dresser the entire time. I didn't open it, not once, not even when the temptation clawed at me. It felt sacred, like touching it too soon would violate a promise I didn't fully understand. Then one morning I walked into her room and knew the air felt still, overly neat. Like the world had paused. Her bedside lamp glowed softly, her favorite quilt was pulled up to her chest, and her hands were folded as if she'd done it herself. She looked peaceful, not gone, just finished. I sat beside her and cried in a way a grown man rarely allows himself to cry. The kind of crying that comes from deep, aching places where gratitude and grief meet and neither knows how to leave. When I finally stood, I saw the journal she'd kept about me resting on her nightstand, open to a page I hadn't turned to yet. Her final entry written in shaky ink, "He's ready." My knees nearly buckled. 2 days after the funeral, a small gathering, simple, exactly what she wanted, I finally took the envelope from my dresser. I sat at her old dining table, the same table where she'd taught me how to multiply fractions and how to choose kindness even when it cost something. The house was too quiet, too big, too full of memories she wasn't in anymore. I held the envelope up to the light, half hoping I could see through it, but Grandma had used thick paper, of course she had. When I broke the seal, my hands trembled. Inside was a single sheet of stationery, folded neatly. I opened it. Her handwriting, still elegant, even at the end, filled the page. "Danny, if you're reading this, it means my work is done and yours is beginning. Never underestimate the old. Our minds are the sharpest weapons we have. You saw weakness, I let you. You saw confusion, I allowed it. But what you didn't see was the plan I built, the trap I set, and the faith I had that you would step into your strength when the moment required it. You passed the test, even if you think you didn't. Now use what you've learned, protect the vulnerable, question the obvious, read the fine print, and remember the truth is always written between the lines. Love, Grandma Leaner." I sat there with the letter pressed to my chest, breathing in shallow, uneven bursts. That was her last lesson, not about inheritance. Not about family betrayal, not about the legal games she played better than anyone I'd ever met. It was about perception, how easy it is to assume weakness when someone grows old, and how dangerous that assumption can be. She wasn't warning me about Marlene or Victor. She was warning me about the world, about how people prey on those who seem fragile, about how paperwork becomes a weapon in the wrong hands, about how age doesn't erase intelligence, it sharpens it into something quieter but far more powerful. And she wanted me to carry that forward, not just for her, for others who didn't have a Daniel in their lives, for elders being tricked, manipulated, pushed, pressured, for families slipping into silence until it's too late. Grandma used her sharpest weapon, her mind, to expose the truth. Now it was my turn, so here's the part where I talk to you. Yeah, you watching this, listening to this, hearing my voice in your headphones. If you have an older parent, grandparent, neighbor, or friend, check on them. Ask questions. Read the documents before they sign anything. Do not assume confusion means incompetence. Do not assume silence means acceptance. And never, ever assume that age equals weakness. Because the smartest person in my family, the one who saved herself, saved her home, and saved me, was 85 years old and pretending to forget things just to see who would take advantage. And some people did, but she also watched who stepped forward to stop it, who stood up, who listened, who fought. Contracts don't destroy families. Secrets do. Assumptions do. Silence does. Don't make the mistakes I made. And if Grandma's watching somehow, I hope she knows I'm still trying to live up to the version of me she believed in. If you want more stories from families like mine, stories where the truth hides in the lines we don't read, subscribe. Because trust me, I've learned that every family, everyone has something written between the lines.